Do you want to, we're gonna get you one up there?
That's where I got
Oh,
mine.
did you? Oh,
Okay.
I had no edits. I have no edits.
Oh, it's unusual.
This is-
Should be all set.
Everyone's here, but.
Gonna wait for Kevin. You're all ready to go.
Is Kevin expected here?
Kevin didn't say that he was not attending, so. It's up to you.
Call to order the meeting of the Westtown Township Planning Commission tonight, Wednesday, May 6, 2026 at 7 p.m. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you join me, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's a republic, if you could keep it. Next order of business is the adoption of the agenda. You see the draft before you. A motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman, having reviewed the agenda, I would move that we adopt the agenda as proposed.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Are there any additions or corrections or other changes proposed to the agenda? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor of adopting the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? No opposed. The agenda is adopted. Next order of business is the approval of our minutes for the meeting of April 8th, 2026. I was not present, so I will be recusing myself, but a motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman, having had the opportunity to review the minutes, I would move that the minutes be adopted as they have been drafted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes for April 8th, 2026, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? No opposed. The minutes are approved and adopted. Next is announcements. Ms. Carter is not here, but if any of the commission members have announcements, now is the all right, moving right
Well,
along.
I just would like to announce, I will not be at the next meeting, but I think everyone already knows that
Thank you.
as was notified in an email. And certainly Mila knows that.
You've submitted a note, right?
I did.
Good. All right, I'm going to close the announcement period and go to public comment, non-agenda items. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on any non-agenda item that affects the or pertains to the planning commission. Is there any comment from the assembled audience? Is there any comment from our remote audience? All right, I'm going to close the public comment period for non-agenda items and we'll move on to new business. And the first item and the only item is the recap of the joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors, which occurred on Monday, May 4th. Are there any observations? I think we were all here except for Mr. Flynn. Any comments? They said that we meet expectations. I thought that was pretty good.
I find the meetings the same every year. Very little dialogue occurs between the parties.
I also noticed that they didn't reorder our priorities. So I think we can continue with that if we wish. Of course, that's just I view those as just guidelines. We can change the priorities at any time.
Yeah, what struck me was they indicated they were more than satisfied with the qualifications of the members of the planning commission. So that's number one. And number two, certainly their priorities, at least some of them, are pipeline ordinance and the flexible development ordinance.
All right. Any other comments? Any other concerns about the joint meeting? Okay, I'll close that new business item and we'll move on to old business. And the first item is land development application for the Westtown School Dining Hall. The applicant, Westtown School, calls for demolition of the existing business manager's office and construction of a new 23,600 square foot dining hall building, a two-way private roadway extension connecting the new building to West School Lane, and a closed-loop geothermal system. The new building includes kitchen and dining facilities, 2 elevators, restrooms, a wraparound terrace patio, and an off-street loading space for deliveries. The new building will be serviced by a campus water system and public sewer. The stormwater management facilities will consist of a new subsurface infiltration basin and relocation of an existing subsurface infiltration basin. The application has been reviewed by the township consultants and the Chester County Planning Commission. So, Westtown School, do you wish to make a presentation? Good evening.
Can you turn on your microphone and speak into the microphone so we can get it on the recording? And there's a button there. Thank you. There you go.
So I'm just going to give a brief overview of the program, although you've already captured it pretty well. Currently, Westtown's dining facilities are in their main building, and that facility is dated and doesn't have the required capacity. So this is a brand new building to accommodate their dining services. And as you said, it's 23,000 square feet, 2 stories, although the ground floor is buried in the hillside. So, you know, in terms of massing and its relationship to Main, it looks like a 1-story building. The program at the ground floor is a large commercial kitchen, support spaces, offices, and what's termed as a gathering space, which is sort of a multifunction meeting room. The upper floor has a servery and some dishwashing equipment, and then the main dining room, it has a capacity of 460 students at one time. And that's the program. Do you want to talk about that?
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Poindexter, the engineer of record from Studio Sistema, and I'm joined with Brittany, who is the landscape architecture designer. And so we were tasked with designing the access road to the dining hall. The access road is a two-way road that allows large delivery trucks to bring in food to the dining hall, as well as offers a secondary connection to the parking areas, to the athletic fields. It was a unique challenge because there's a lot of topography on the site, as well as some beautiful existing trees that we did our best to preserve and kind of work around. The stormwater management system is actually located below this road. It's a Ferguson R-tank system, which is basically crates that allow water to be held and slowly infiltrate into the system. There is a geothermal well field that's proposed in one of the current athletic fields. So basically the athletic field will be replaced once that geothermal field is installed. Besides that, it's your typical water sewer connections and stormwater structures. But that's the overall gist.
Great. Are there any questions for Westtown Schools representatives?
Oh, okay, I'll go first. Just to summarize, please. Two-story building, driveway, pedestrian facilities, stormwater management facilities, and landscaping.
Correct.
Is that the main items
That's
of
correct.
improvements?
Geothermal.
And of course, geothermal system. And you're, I guess, demolishing an existing structure because it's in the way and it cannot be relocated apparently. And otherwise, is there, as far as the demolition goes, or is there other driveways and walkways and other facilities, trees that are being removed as in order to construct this building and the driveways?
So there's a driveway to the healthcare center building that's being reconstructed in a new location. There's also a new ADA path that's going to route to the healthcare building. There are some trees that we couldn't avoid removing that will be replaced. I think more inches per diameter than what we're removing. So the landscape plan is quite robust. There's a gas tank that's being relocated that's currently close to the facilities building that needed to be relocated in order to allow this drive to work properly.
What happens to the giant?
To the what?
Mm.
It travels with us and will be with us in new space for the next 103 years.
What happens to the old dining hall?
Chris Benbow, head of school at Westtown. What happens to the old dining building? At this point, the formal answer is unclear. It will give us a great deal of terrific space right in the middle of the main building, particularly by the time we're thinking not just the dining room itself, but kitchen, downstairs, upstairs. So certainly something that will be directly related to student use and student support, not a bunch of offices, but details to follow once we're clearer about them.
Okay.
Anything else before I wander off?
Yeah. so this is a dining hall. The whole building is pitched as a dining hall.
Yes.
But the plans, and it's described 2 stories, so the dining hall part is in the basement or the first floor? The upstairs.
Yes. Think of it as more of,
Let me cut to the chase. The reason I'm asking
Yeah.
is that it seems like in the plans, the building is shown as being broken up into a bunch of offices or smaller rooms or. That's the lower level.
I think he's talking,
That's,
Okay.
that's the ground level. What we're calling the ground level. The first floor is what comes out sort of level with the main building. And then because it's a very steep hill, the ground floor with all the offices and rooms is sort of tucked under.
Okay, and so what I was wondering about is all that space for supportive dining? All that offices, et cetera, that's all for supportive dining?
Yes.
Okay, can I keep going?
Go ahead.
This is only, I have never seen a stormwater management system that's below the roadway. I mean, I don't know anything about stormwater management. I'm not going to pretend to. I assume this is a standard practice or a proven technology or whatever.
Yes.
Have you done any of these anyplace else? There aren't any other ones like this in Westtown School, is there?
I would have to ask. if There's
We have previous pavement, but not this.
Yeah, not this stuff.
So this product is produced by a company called Ferguson. I think there's one pretty far down the road. I saw one when I was driving in, and it is used nationwide. We've used them in the city of Philadelphia quite a bit, where there's not a lot of green space.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why we felt it was appropriate for this site is because of the topography. In order to make a basin, carve one out, it would take a huge amount of space and a lot of disturbance to the land. And using a product like this actually allows the water to infiltrate without needing to carve out that big space in the landscape, basically, because you're on a hill.
Okay. I mean,
And just so you know, there's a big BMP infiltration basin under the new parking lot at the Oakbourne Mansion. I don't know if it's similar to your project.
oh, there is. I didn't know that.
And it's rated for loading of these trucks and so forth. So it's very, like, it's structurally sound to take this type of loading.
I mean, the reason I'm trying to educate myself here is because every proposed outbuilding, brings up stormwater management for us. And if this is a system, this could be it seems to me this is a system that could be a solution for a lot of homeowners, landowners. They have a driveway, and that is usually just a driveway. And maybe it's something that can be applied, so.
Absolutely. It's a tool in the toolbox. As landscape architects and civil engineers, we try to use nature-based solutions when available. If we can put in a bioinfiltration basin, we prefer to do that. But in cases where space is limited, I definitely recommend this as a solution.
Cool. All right, that's all I have.
Okay.
On the subject of stormwater management, where that system is discharging, does it eventually go to the pond?
It makes it to a tributary that actually lines up with where the pond, where the lake discharges as well and continues on. So it's pretty complex back there. There's tributaries that come together, and then there's another culvert that crosses the road further up Westtown Road.
But does it drain to the pond itself?
It eventually,
For clarity purposes, when we're talking about pond, we're talking about Westtown Lake.
I'm sorry, Westtown Lake. Does it drain to Westtown Lake?
yes.
So why not just use Westtown Lake as your stormwater management? Why don't you just take the abundant capacity that it has to account for the increased runoff from this improvement?
Well, consider this the water quality management before it reaches the lake. So we're we're treating the water through infiltration and we're reducing the rate of the water running off the site before it makes it to the lake. So in that way, we're not increasing the capacity of the lake, and we're also ensuring that the water is clean before it reaches any of those natural waterways.
And I'll add this, before the Westtown Lake was remediated, one of the problems was the lake bottom. The lake was becoming shallower and shallower due to sedimentation that comes from upstream tributaries. So Westtown School excavated many thousands of cubic yards of sediment and put it on fields up above the lake. So they need to protect the lake, and the lake has a forebay, which is designed to protect from sedimentation. So this is just another way, and I think department regulations probably require this.
At some point, I would like you to go over the waivers you're requesting, but other members of the commission may have other questions about the design itself.
Yes, other questions? It looked like from CEG's review, which was dated April 29th, there were a number of concerns that were related to stormwater management. Have they all been resolved at this point?
We
Mr. Federico's here, but he's our traffic guru.
believe so.
Yes, thank you.
And we actually met also with Matthew yesterday to review these comments. And it's my understanding that the comments at this point related to stormwater and erosion control are just plan edits. There's no main concerns anymore.
So they've all, as far as we're concerned and as far as Westtown School is concerned, those comments have been resolved.
Pending the distribution of the waivers. Some of the waivers have to do with stormwater, so that would impact how this.
Right. Right. Okay, do you want to do waivers now?
Well, unless there's no other, yes, unless there's other
I didn't
questions.
hear any other questions.
Yeah, no, we can go to waivers.
Mr. Haddon, do you have anything?
No.
Okay.
So on cover sheet, your cover sheet, you have
Yeah.
10 waiver requests. Could you go through each one, please?
Sure. And Al, are you bringing up the cover sheet? Thank you.
Thank you,
And I
Mr.
might
Federico, for
walk
standing
closer
in
to
for Ms. Carter.
And I would put that Cedarville gave us a few corrections on these waivers that we'll make with the resubmission. So actually a couple of them are, we actually don't need that we listed. So from top to bottom. The first waiver relates to the geothermal fields. And so I mentioned before that there's an athletic field with a nice flat area that was determined to be the best place for the geothermal system to be installed. In order to do that, of course, you have to disturb the area, install the wells, and then replace the athletic field. But this waiver request is to not have to meet all the stormwater management requirements through the township, which requires you to reduce your runoff rate by 50%. So basically, we have to install a stormwater management system in order to reduce the rate of runoff from a site that would essentially be exactly the same post-construction. So we went around, it's a little complex, but we went around many iterations with the township engineer, and we're able to show that we actually are managing more stormwater in the main PNP system, subsurface system under the road to offset some of that runoff. And basically we're able to come up with a solution that I believe met township engineers interpretation of the code.
So this waiver, did it Was this something that you were proposing or did it come from the township engineer?
So you might need to work closely with the township engineer to.
So you have an athletic field
Yes.
and right now it's lawn and it's mowed. And after the geothermal system is installed, it'll be athletic field that's mowed. Why do you need a waiver?
Because what the waiver would require is that we put another subsurface system in, that actually would concentrate flow, and it would only be, reducing that runoff rate. There's really no water quality element to it. It just didn't really, in this case, sometimes the code can work against you. The intention of the code is more to make sure that we're managing, increased runoff from the impervious surface, that we're capturing water, from developed sites and making sure that the water quality, is improved. But for this site in particular, especially since we're trying to install, a very green, energy system, this was actually kind of disincentivizing, that system.
Okay, I mean, personally, I think it's silly. I don't think you need a waiver, but you know, if the rest of the commission agrees to recommend to the board to waive that provision of the ordinance and the board agrees with it, then what difference does it make? It won't make any difference. You'll get your waiver.
Well, I'm happy to, I mean, there's a lot of details to it. We've added, a lot of meadow through the site, to enhance, and reduce the runoff rate from the site, to increase the landscape area. We've oversized the subsurface system under the road in order to make sure that we're reducing the runoff as much as possible from the site. So, I think I think we've used good engineering project to do the best that we can with the space, that we have on the site.
Okay, very good. Why don't you move on?
Can I stop you there? They thought the Westtown School thought a waiver was necessary. They discussed it with the engineer. The engineer agrees that the waiver is appropriate. Your position is you don't need to ask a waiver. So at this point, you know, I think it's appropriate to recommend granting of the waiver.
I agree. Our engineer is satisfied, correct?
Yeah, well, Rob's making the point that it perhaps the requirement of 144-301-1 isn't required, which is, you know, a reasonable interpretation. But since the parties have agreed that they want a waiver and the engineer's recommending the waiver, I say unless the other members disagree, I say we're fine with the waiver.
Understood.
Okay. Next.
There is a existing stone storage infiltration bed that manages a portion of the school, and it's not documented very well how much area that it's managing, but it is performing excellently. They haven't had any issues with it, and the storage bed is in conflict with the road. So we are proposing to take that exact footprint, that exact depth, and just shift it about 40 feet outside of the roadway and reconnect pipes to it that are already draining to that system. And so the waiver is basically requesting not to do all of the calculations as if it was new development, but to basically take the existing system and relocate it since it has a history of performing.
And it's gonna be relocated to a same kind of soil, the same kind of everything. So you expect it to perform exactly the same way.
Yes. Right.
The NCEG favors the waiver. Okay.
Next.
Third waiver, we've been corrected, it's not actually applicable to the subsurface system, so we'll be removing that.
And why is that? Why is?
Because the slope requirements are for open basins and they don't apply to subsurface.
Okay. Number 4,
Waiver requirement. Patient submission. We were told at the beginning of the process that it's easiest to come in with the final.
yeah, it's granted in almost every occasion, so.
Waiver number 6 is actually the same situation where it's not,
I'm sorry, did you skip one?
oh.
Sorry, I was moving.
Oh, and then, I'm sorry, number 5 is the same situation where it does not apply to the subsurface space. So that one will be.
Okay, number 6,
Number 6, to waive the requirement of labeling total tract boundary lines with variance and distances. Since this is a pretty small area inside of a really large parcel, we did not perform a boundary survey for this project, but we are referencing boundary information from recently approved permits.
seems reasonable to me, 600 acres. What's this, 3 acres, 5 acres?
Correct.
Well, but that's just my opinion. If you.
I agree.
I mean, it seems to me we waive this requirement every time there's been a improvement or development. Has it ever, I'm assuming at one time it's been done.
Possibly, I can't remember.
Do we know if it's ever been done?
Couldn't say.
That's a question, I guess, for Mila. She could help us out.
Well, I'm gonna say, if it's hasn't been done for 100 years, say, I think it's time we redo it, just to bring everybody up to date. But
Okay,
Typically
so-
done for larger new developments like Stokes or Troutbeck or something like Troutbeck's closed down, but if it's a full site development where you're developing the whole site, you generally do a full track back.
I think we might want to keep it.
But
yeah,
This one
Well,
doesn't even-
that question may be answered by whether or not we agree with number 7.
Okay, what's number 7?
A request to waive dedication of the right of way. So that all the roads within Westonville are privately maintained, so this is consistent with previous the existing roads.
Mr. Federico?
I think typically this is applied to the roads adjacent, the public roads adjacent to the property. In my recollection, we've only really brought that up before if there's a project on the periphery of the site. And I think the last time we did that was the athletic fields, and after going around and round, I'm not sure we ever actually took the right of way.
We did not.
Is the road that this comes in off of, is it a township road or a state road?
Westtown,
I believe Westtown State,
Westtown Road is a state road.
didn't they have to get an HOP for their
Yeah.
culvert work and
Yeah.
such?
Yeah, so the state's not going to take the right of way anyway, so it's kind of a moot point.
Yeah, I mean, during the athletic field, it was just because it was by the curve. I really didn't think it was relevant to this project.
It was problematic. Back to 6. You okay with 6 in light of the answer to 7? Sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, I personally am, and likewise 7, but that's me.
I mean, as we're going along, I sense consensus so far on waiver of all of these. Okay. 8,
8, this is actually for the minimum radius of 35 feet at street curb intersections. So one of the guiding design elements that we really try to use on this road is to keep traffic slow and not to allow kind of wide turns and quick movements.
It was also to protect a lot of topography and existing trees, so, you'll see that the radius is so much higher than typical 35 feet you would see on typical residential roads, and we've
Having trouble steering this.
we've worked with Al, and I know we still owe you a couple turnings out, but we're working with him to show how the different types of vehicles are accessing the site to make sure that all the radiuses are size appropriate.
And specifically, I think we're talking about this radius here.
Correct.
Yeah, really that one is what you're requesting for
That's correct.
concern is probably not really looking to see some exhibits showing. I mean, that's sort of a parking lot radius type.
So that has yet to be resolved?
That's-
Okay.
So why don't you want, isn't that a stop controlled intersection? For a vehicle that's proceeding toward the new driveway from the existing driveway?
Keeping action on that.
And I thought I heard you say something about traffic calming?
Yes. Have people stop and look each way and be able to take that right instead of having kind of the sweeping yield type right turn that you would see with larger radius.
But there's a stop bar. Am I seeing a stop bar?
Yes.
There's going to be a stop sign. All right.
And that would be people leaving from the main entrance of the main building, largely.
Correct. To
So there, I mean, there is some substantial circulation at drop off and pickup time, but most of it is at either boys' end or girls' end, usually, for the high school.
What is the radius you're proposing there?
Here's a related question. I noticed that some of the truck turning diagrams showed turning operations that leave the roadway.
Yes,
So what would we do to make sure that the edges of the roadway are protected?
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the areas where the trucks are going into the other buildings, or those are going to be built to support the weight of the trucks. Which sheet are?
No, the turning, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'm talking about the turning events, turning operations for the loading dock in the new building.
Sorry, I'm looking for those exhibits.
I think you went past them.
Did I?
Yeah, see, so some of these show the trucks having to leave the roadway to make this turning operation.
That is all a paved surface that they're going to be on?
So it's okay?
Sort of, it's the trying to be contextually sensitive in this, if they can physically make it. And this isn't a through street, this is a private street in the middle of a campus. I'm not sure. Without a significant change probably to another building or going back to the drawing board on this building. I'm not sure there's an alternative. I also am not anticipating that there's going to be, I mean, the food deliveries, the tractor trailers, you're expecting how many a week?
Did you say how many a week?
How many tractor trailers a week?
It's like, I don't know that they're all
full-size tractor trailers, maybe once a week for that, maybe, but otherwise they're smaller delivery trucks. And that's all outside of our maintenance building where we get deliveries all the time right now. Maintenance delivery, we get 18-wheelers that are dropping off other things that you purchase in the facilities department. But that's kind of like where the paving goes up to is facilities building. The limit of disturbance is our garage bay there.
Are we just talking about operational functionality and not a waiver issue?
We did jump to operational functionality. Yes, we did. No, I mean, back to the waiver, my initial opinion at this point is that 8 feet is probably too narrow. I mean, other than parking lots, even in the more urban environments, you typically don't see anything less than 15 feet until maybe you're going into Old City. And if you are going to be permitting the right turn movement from there, I think you're going to get a lot more at 8 feet. Vehicles probably going into the, oh, I lost it again, oncoming lane of traffic. But I'm expecting some additional exhibits.
Do I understand correctly that part of your rationale for the 8-foot turning radius is this is going to force people to slow down? Because it's a sharp turn and it's a tight radius and this is a way of forcing them to keep way below the speed limit on campus.
Down at the stop sign, so we have this type of radius. Make that stop. And we do have the turning plans that show that we're only having passenger vehicles make this right turn. And so they're able to make this movement, but we can, I think the waiver, maybe we could have just agreed that the radius will be less than 35 feet, but where that lands is something that we need to work out.
Yeah, I mean, typically for the waiver, we'd like to know the extent of the waiver that's being allowed, because just to approve less than 35 feet could be 0.
And is there I think you just said this a minute ago, but is there a minimum number that you're comfortable with?
I'd like to see their exhibit, but typically in a situation like this, probably 15
Can you do 15?
would not be unreasonable.
But do you think it's physically possible to do 15?
To take that tree down.
That's a proposed tree. What I want to make sure is that the change in elevation works with the radius. And just the vertical curves and all the difficult things that are kind of happening at that intersection still work that larger radius, but I think it's a long time, so I think if he says 15 feet would work well, then we'll take a look and try to make that work.
Well, you can hear from this commissioner that I would not support 8 foot. Well, I would probably support something less than 35, but that's just me.
And there will be substantial traffic because that lane leads to the athletic center and the swimming pool. So there will be more than just a few turning events at that stop.
Yeah, may I, at the risk of inserting myself where I'm not an expert, but one of the things that I think is important for folks who are familiar with sort of what our traffic is like and has been like in the recent past on campus is this bit here. If we're picturing sort of the main building and circle here, this has been in the past sort of very much the through road, right? When we're going sort of past Central, moving around and then heading down to the parking behind the athletic center and that sort of thing. It's not going to be serving that function in the same way. So even not that it was heavily traveled, but even the amount of traffic that I think we may be picturing is
and correct me if I'm wrong in this, but my sense is going to be, as it's coming into West Interest, diverted.
Pardon me 1 second. It's just dawning on me. Should he be having a microphone with him or?
We'll try to pick it up.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, I'll go back here. Apologies. So
I'm a little disappointed you guys don't have plans. And then you have to stand up there to demonstrate things. Do you have plans? Did you bring plans with you?
Well, I think Neil provided you with a plan.
I
No,
thought,
I mean, I have plans. Do you have plans? Because I have extra plans I give them to you and you can demonstrate standing in front of us at the microphone.
I was just simply trying to point to something there. I apologize if that was not well received. All I'm trying to suggest is that the road that we are seeing there to the south of the proposed new construction, between that and the current existing main building, will be seeing significantly less traffic than that road is right now because of the new road. And so when we're thinking about anyone who would be coming sort of from that part and then proceeding down to where that stop bar was described and turning, that's likely to be, frankly, relatively few vehicles compared to what we might be imagining right now. That was my only contribution. Sorry if that landed badly.
The delivery trucks should almost all be taking the new road. So because right now, the delivery trucks are going on the existing road to the main building, to the existing dining room. They will now go to the new dining room on the new road. And the delivery trucks for facilities will be doing the same thing. So that turn won't probably be used. I mean, someone could go the wrong way. But the majority of the traffic we see now with large trucks has to go to the main building for their deliveries, but a lot of that will now be on the new road.
Another concern that I thought I heard from Mr. Federico was that some of the turning events at that intersection might carry into both lanes, creating a safety hazard. Was that correct or not?
That is correct. I mean, and I think of,
That argues for a wider radius.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and you're gonna talk about it tomorrow. Good. Where were we?
leave number 8.
Minimum, yeah, we did 8. Okay, number 9, waive the requirement for perimeter yard requirements.
So this relates back to the parcel size, since this building is so far from the actual limits of the parcel. Instead of calculating those yard setback requirements, we're just asking for a waiver.
Fine with that.
Seems reasonable.
Yes.
Okay, last one is and this is not a waiver, is it? This is a variance that you, correct?
Not during my review and then determines understood but it's our understanding, again, this is something that we're gonna discuss in tomorrow's call with Mila as well, but Chapter 149 has definitions for both minor roads and collector roads. And it's our understanding that minor roads have a requirement of 24-foot width pavement. I think there's a little bit of debate on how to define this road, and that will determine what the pavement width needs to be. So this waiver will ultimately be removed, and it'll either be accepted as a minor road with the 26-foot pavement width, or it will require a variance from the 28-foot requirement for a collector road.
Okay.
Certainly not.
Well, isn't it just simply a driveway?
This is it's a private street.
It's a street?
It's a private street.
I would argue it's a driveway. And I don't know what the requirements are for a driveway. Do you know what they are?
So starting between the driveway and a minor street, we're saying are equivalent, I think. From the code, it says that a minor street could actually go down even to a 20-foot with pavement with township approval, so yes, we agree that it's either driveway, minor road, however it needs to fit in the appropriately, but the West School Lane Road is 22-foot pavement, so we think the only reason this width is wider than that is to accommodate those large delivery trucks, those movements, so we're hoping to avoid the variance process.
And the last question, your section number, you have section 150, section 151, it's really 149?
No, that's,
I didn't know, I didn't understand which part of the code to look at, so we're getting clarity on that. So
this is zoning 1513, interior circulation and access. Two-way drive lanes and commercial and all other uses should be 28 feet.
Right, and there may be other design standards that are not applicable to driveways, but are to an interior or private road, so. But you're gonna talk about that tomorrow as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is, and I'm trying to recall, was this for the entire length of the road or just the section where it was connecting
this is for the entire.
the entire length?
So it's-
Okay.
That was to accommodate the large delivery trucks and then also to navigate between the existing streets.
Okay,
So Al, you were just reading a definition from some portion of the code.
Yes.
But we had a reference to another portion of the code talking about minor roads.
So this is the second attempt that we're hearing to try to justify this. There was an email yesterday that tried to liken this to driveways. Mila reading between 15 section zoning 1510 and 1513 still believes that 1513 is the applicable standard. I'm just hearing this about trying to define it another way. As I said in my review, I don't have an objection to 26 feet. It just seems like this is a variance.
So, but my question really was, do we have a conflict in the code?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the code now on my trusty iPhone and you're right, Al. It is in zoning. It is for driveways, interior, and it does say 28-foot requirement. But being that it's zoning, that would require variance from the zoning hearing board.
Because it's defined in chapter 149, there's a minor road definition that isn't addressed in the.
So are you saying this is a road?
I believe it's a minor road.
I would have to go and look at that again. I mean, I don't know if that's internal and if that's going to be dedicated. Typically, when we start talking about things like minor roads, then you get into right-of-way and setbacks, which are all things that I didn't think we were discussing as it goes through this site, because that would just be silliness.
yeah, but
So-
but this isn't resolved and it won't be resolved until they have further discussions.
So if this is treated as a variance,
They need,
you would not object to this variance?
I wouldn't object to it, but it would
Okay.
need to go to the zoning hearing board.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
I mean, it probably could be classified as de minimis because it's like.
Yep.
7% request for relief. But we can't resolve that right now. Are there any other questions for the applicants, engineers, or architects or Westtown School? I have a question about Mr. D'Annunzio's comment. He wrote on April 30th that he was concerned about the proposed location of trash storage in relation to the loading dock. Is that resolved, unresolved?
It's unresolved.
Okay, so all right. Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right, since all the issues aren't resolved, we're not in a position to make a recommendation tonight. But if they get resolved, we might be able to make a recommendation at our next meeting, which would be later on in May. Sound good to us? Good? Good, good. Okay. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, David, for coming in.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. Building meeting rooms. Multiple members.
I get this back up.
All right. Anybody have the, here we go. Unless you think that you will have some insight into pipeline safety, then no, you are excused. And thank you. Thanks, Al. Thank you.
You still have no on.
Thanks, Al.
Okay.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Okay, the next item of business are ordinance amendments, pipeline safety. The planning commission will have a continued discussion related to the potential ordinance that will regulate developments within the proximity to transmission pipelines. And in the materials, there was, I think Lila has produced a draft ordinance, as well as she has provided copies of a Chester County, I think, subdivision and land development model, as well as portions of the East Goshen Township model. So how does the commission want to proceed? My recommendation would be to start with Milla's draft and see what we think. Sir.
This is sort of the bigger issue. When we talked, when we had the meeting with the Board of Supervisors the other night, they keep bringing this up, the pipeline safety ordinance. Having been through this exercise with Stokes, I know there are things that we can do, but we're pretty limited in what we can do in terms of regulating pipelines.
As far as safety
is concerned. Okay. But yes, we can talk about setbacks and that sort of thing. My understanding is most of, the horse is already out of the barn on most of the stuff because of where the pipelines are and the existing right of ways and, the previously built parts of the township. So all I'm saying is how much of a priority is this for us as compared to a priority for the Board of Supervisors?
hard to say.
Well, if it's the priority of the Board of Supervisors, it's a priority for us. Isn't it?
Well, in terms of what we recommend, isn't that part of what we're doing is picking our priorities? And it seemed like that was my impression was that the reason that they saw this as a priority was the safety part. And I don't see that there's that much we can do that has any impact on that. That's all I'm suggesting.
Well, as we go through it, it might become apparent that there are certain areas where having an ordinance in place would be helpful. And I'll reframe one of your questions. One of the concerns that the Board of Supervisors raised was that if we were to recommend an ordinance that had this kind of setbacks that are reflected in East Goshen Township's ordinance and in the Chester County Model Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance, we would be making substantial areas and things non-conforming.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be then, which is okay, but that would bring into play the law that relates to what you can do with a pre-existing non-conforming use. So some of the setbacks that we see in the draft ordinances would not be applicable to, as you're saying, to hundreds of homes and hundreds of structures and commercial facilities in Westtown Township. So I don't know what that argues for. I mean, does that mean that we should do it, or that we should consider something else?
I mean, we can, you know, we can plow through the draft, and I'm just
Well,
trying to,
I'd say this, the Board of Supervisors asked us to make a recommendation, so I think we should accommodate them.
To put a fine point on it, what's the point?
the point is,
I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right, so I had took the liberty of drawing on this zoning map in heavy blue lines where the existing pipeline right-of-ways are. And as you can see, many of the pipelines go through backyards of properties, or in the case of Stokes, they'll essentially be behind the houses. But there is some undeveloped land that an ordinance would apply to. The biggest of which is actually Westtown School, if there's any development ever on there. So that's a pretty significantly sized piece of ground.
600 acres.
So that's, I number these 1 through 4. There's basically four lots that, 4 properties this could apply to. Number 1 is near Little Shallow Hill Drive and Little Shallow Road. There's a small, not so small property that is not developed, that potentially could be developed, so maybe it would apply there. This segment of Westtown School. This lot, which driving by on 926, you can see it's pretty deep and wide. I don't know who owns it.
That's the horse path.
And then over the Stratton Farm.
Yeah.
It could apply to them. So there are properties that are not developed that, if they are developed and we don't have an ordinance in place, we're gonna get another Stokes.
okay, and yeah, well, I guess the main thing I'm worried about is sort of the law of unintended consequences. You know, we do this and when we make a recommendation on some additional ordinance, and as you said, Jack, as a result, all these properties become non-conforming. And do we want to go there?
What I said at the Board of Supervisors meeting, that in zoning, there's this constant tension between property rights and public health, welfare, and safety. And I think that we should lean, my preference is to lean toward public health, welfare, and safety. And so my feeling is we ought to consider some of these setbacks with an eye to what this is going to do to a number of properties that we know will become non-conforming with respect to, you know, all kinds of things, structures, sheds, swimming pools, whatever. But, you know, zoning ordinances evolve and properties become, certain parts of properties or certain features on properties become non-conforming because the township, the municipality has decided that it's important to make a change. So I feel sensitive that we should be sensitive to that issue, but I don't think that that dictates that we should. I'm not willing to say that that means we should not make a recommendation to the supervisor.
Sure. Okay, I just, with that.
But I think it's
perspective
important,
going
I think it's
forward.
important that we had that discussion.
Yeah.
And we try to evaluate what's going to happen to all these properties that would become technically non-conforming if some of these setbacks are adopted, which are, well, yeah, I mean, you saw for a carbon dioxide pipeline, I don't know if there's any in West Township, but they were talking about half a mile. Half a mile. I mean,
Township's only a mile long, so.
so
Well, to your point and to Tom's point, let's say we adopt an ordinance and there's a setback requirement, but someone wants to put a shed in or a pool. Are we gonna craft the ordinance so that it doesn't apply to sheds or pools? It's really just their primary structure.
we certainly can. Certainly can.
Do you know how the other ordinances in the other townships, whether they've taken that into consideration?
It didn't appear that that was taken in consideration in East Goshen townships, but you know, we haven't looked at a lot of ordinances either. What we have is a suggestion from Milla that I think is largely based on East Goshen Township's ordinance. And we heard at that supervisors meeting, Pat McKenna suggested that we look at that ordinance because they had gone to some pains to adopt an ordinance that would fly. Though there's some things that I see in the East Goshen Township's ordinance that I don't think can fly. For instance, leak detection. That's a safety requirement that I think is probably preempted by federal or state requirements. I don't think that we can require it.
You're saying we can't regulate that?
I don't believe we can because it seems to be more in the line of pipeline materials, you know, cathodic protection, fire suppression, whatever. Those are all PHMSA stuff or PUC stuff. Seems to me, but maybe there's a case that has said, well, for this particular concern, a municipality may regulate. But I mean, that stood out to me when I looked at East Goshen Township's ordinance.
She gave us 4 things and they were in an email. And I'd like to just be clear on what they are, because I'm confused. One of them is a September 2014 draft. That's 12 years old. One,
Let's stop there. I think this is Chester County's model subdivision and land development ordinance. I don't know if you agree or not, but that's what I thought it
all
was.
right, I printed 2 copies of the same thing. Forgive me.
Okay. That's the same thing.
Yeah, so then what is this? Chapter 171.
Well,
Is this
that's East Goshen Township's ordinance.
And then the one dated May 2026
Those
is
are,
what she crafted.
those are amendments to Westtown Township's ordinance, because apparently there's already some stuff that we have in the ordinance that relates to pipelines.
And that's the one you wanted to start with.
I thought that that would make the most sense. So that's just my proposal. I don't know what the other commissioners want to do. Do we want to start with Chester County's model, or do we want to take a run through East Goshen?
Oh. Well, East Goshen.
You want to start with East Goshen's?
Sure.
Okay. I'm happy with that.
171 pipeline.
Yes. Okay, adopted in 2020. And you can see that they have a series of definitions. Anybody want to comment on those? And it doesn't say whether this, though I think that Pat McKenna said that this is not in zoning. I think he said this is a public safety, police power type ordinance. Does anybody remember that? It's important for us to know where this goes, because there are different requirements. Whether it's an MPC type ordinance or whether it's a police power. I can't remember. I thought Pat said it was police power, but I'm not sure.
Can you define what police powers is versus
Well,
zoning?
Zoning basically is what is defined by the requirements that are set forth in the MPC. So if it's a thing that relates to area, bulk, or other location, it's covered by what municipalities can do is covered by the MPC. If it's a police power ordinance, we look at the second class township code and we say, what can townships of second class do? And you would have to decide whether this is a public safety type issue, which generally second class townships have the authority to promulgate.
So is it the Board of Supervisors that has regulatory authority versus a zoning hearing board?
If it's a police power ordinance, yes. If it's a zoning ordinance, the zoning hearing board would have some authority, and the Board of Supervisors might have some authority if it's a conditional use.
Well, I guess that's something we need guidance from the board on, where they want this to reside. And we don't know that, do we?
Yeah, I think the way this is drafted, 171-5, it speaks of criminal penalties under the criminal procedure rules of Pennsylvania. So I think that's where East Goshen sits.
So we think it's a police power type ordinance, not an MPC type ordinance. But Rob is right. I mean, the township would have to decide, perhaps based on our recommendation, whether to make this a municipalities planning code type ordinance or a police power ordinance. Anybody have any thoughts about the definitions? Yeah, we're looking at chapter 171, pipeline saturation, East Goshen Township's ordinance.
It seems to me they've broken it down into two distinct products that are being transmitted. Natural gas and anything else, meaning hazardous liquid. And then they focus on carbon dioxide, which I've never heard of. I don't even know what that is.
I don't think that there is such a pipeline in Westtown Township, but that doesn't mean that there couldn't be.
Well, I'm aware that they occasionally change the product inside the pipelines from time to time. I know that was explained during the whole Mariner 1 and 2 pipeline controversy going back a few years. And that's the one the two pipelines that go down 352.
Right. Mariner 1 and 2.
So I guess it's important to include carbon dioxide because that's a potential product, whatever that is. And my reading of this, that had broader, wider setbacks than the other products, but we can get to that.
Yes, 3/4 of a mile.
Aren't we breathing out carbon dioxide right now?
Okay, we're not going to get into climate change here, okay?
No, I wasn't talking about climate change. I'm just saying that's a gas. We're exhaling it.
Yeah, I'm being facetious.
I know.
EPA just rescinded the endangerment finding, which was that carbon dioxide was a gas that could be regulated under the Clean Air Act. That's all. And that's because we breathe it. So we breathe it out.
Is it heavier than nitrogen oxide?
Yeah, I think it sinks.
So it's sinking into all those retention ponds we have.
But some observations I have is they're basically saying that no person shall construct a new, this is in section 171-2. They're saying no person shall construct a new natural gas pipeline or hazardous liquid pipeline within the boundaries of East Goshen Township. Well, I thought it was clear, and perhaps I'm wrong. I thought it was clear that townships can't forbid it. The law and federal law and Pennsylvania law gives the PUC the authority to grant to the pipeline operator in construction eminent domain.
Mhm.
So they pick the route in conjunction with the appropriate state or federal authority.
Well, but here's what that pipeline that went up 352 through East Coast.
The Mariner.
And that was there. So their ordinance is dated 2020. That pipeline came in after 2020.
True.
So they basically ignored the ordinance.
Or they felt it was unenforceable.
Right.
I think that's unenforceable. So unless there's a case or a decision from the regulatory authorities that basically says, yeah, oh yeah, you can say whether you want it in your community or not. I don't think you can.
No, nobody's done that yet.
Yeah, so I wouldn't, but I think the draft that Milla has created for Westtown Township also has this provision in it.
It does.
Yeah, but I don't see how they can, East Goshen or anybody could say that, to your point.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can enact an ordinance, whether you can, and whether you can
Right.
enforce it is
Right.
another question.
And I think be curious to hear what our solicitor said. I'd be willing to bet that he's gonna say you shouldn't put that in the ordinance. Because it's not enforceable.
That's,
It gives the public something to hang on to when they come to the pipeline meetings.
this is true, but I don't think that we should recommend an illegal provision in an ordinance to the board of supervisors.
It's dishonest.
Yeah. 171-3, replacement of existing. They say that they can be replaced if they're existing. Here again, I don't think the township has the authority to mandate this. Section 171-4, repairs. Okay, here again, I don't think the township has authority. And then there are the section on violations, which for a pipeline company, $1,000 is nothing. But we could imprison the company.
But isn't the dollar amount established by some statute or something?
Probably, if it's a summary proceeding, there is a limit. And that's what so it's a criminal proceeding, but it's like a parking ticket. Except that there is an incarceration provision. So, here again, we have to, if this is a police power ordinance and we want to have a criminal provision, we'll have to get the guidance from the solicitor about what in fact we can do. But we almost certainly can add a summary provision, summary citation type provision. The next one is 172, which is carbon dioxide. We don't think that there are any, but there could be. So here again, East Goshen Township is you can't build it. But then they propose in 7172-2, they propose setback requirements, which are half a mile from commercial buildings and 3/4 of a mile from residential or community type. And it's measured from the nearest edge of the pipeline corridor. So we, at this point, we don't know what informs those setback requirements, except that we do see that they're similar in Chester County's model subdivision and land development ordinance amendments. But so let's assume that for a new pipeline, do we feel comfortable with these setbacks? Because you could write it so that it only applies to new pipelines.
Half a mile?
Would make it virtually impossible to construct a new pipeline. I mean, that's how you would do it. If, rather than saying you can't do it, we would use the zoning provision type provision. Now, and I don't know whether it's legal to have this kind of setback in police power ordinance as opposed to an MPC ordinance.
Well, what if you put in, so East Goshen says it's gotta be a half mile setback, which is a mile wide. So, the pipeline company says, well, we have eminent domain authority. And so we're gonna build a pipeline that complies with your setback, and we're gonna take everything. A half mile on each side of the pipeline.
It would cost millions because they'd have to condemn it and pay market value, right? Fair market value.
You would think.
But highways and trains and stuff all do that kind of.
Yeah. I mean, this might be true, but the federal and state authorities would never allow that to happen. I hope.
It would be years.
Unless there were some sort of national emergency. I mean, I could see that in Rook. You know, you might need something like this. But, you know, in the regular, somebody, you know, if Sunoco or who's the owner of the Mariner? Energy Transfer.
Yeah.
They would never do something like that.
Well, that would be if you'd be making their property less valuable. It's almost a taking then. Yeah, you have
Yeah, is the township imposition of this setback requirement tantamount to a taking?
if it was your property, you'd probably argue yes. And why a half mile? Why not a mile?
Well, we don't.
It's arbitrary.
Well, we don't know. There might be planning that goes into it. I mean, PHMSA talks about, you know, blast radiuses and stuff like that. So there is information out there that we could look at that would inform setback choices. But right now, we're just looking at theirs. They say a half mile, they say 3/4 of a mile from residences.
So, so this is valuable because in drafting any ordinance, we need to have a rationale for the level of setback. We don't know what their rationale was. Doesn't matter because we need to have our own rationale. Maybe it's the same, maybe not. But now we know that this is one of the criteria we have to meet if we're going to draft a decent ordinance. That we have to have a rationale for the sentence.
So are we saying that we need expert assistance, consultation services beyond what the township has now? If we're going to do this, do we need to ask the Board of Supervisors to let us hire some sort of a pipeline safety expert?
Didn't Chester County already do that heavy lifting? And that's why we should look to their model?
They did a big study, right? They did they did a hazard evaluation of Mariner, did they not?
I don't personally remember. I just know they did a lot of work.
I'm pretty sure
The draft ordinance.
pretty sure they did. So do we need Chester County to come and talk to us about the pipeline?
I would suggest we just look at their model ordinance and model our ordinance after their model.
Well, Milla gave us this, which I think is their ordinance.
It goes all the way back to 14. Is there something more current?
I don't know.
I have 2 copies if you want a copy.
I have one here.
They're printed twice.
And as I said before, if this is Chester County, which I believe it is, they recommend that it be part of the subdivision and land development ordinance, which is a MPC style ordinance. So they want, from some pipelines, they want 300 feet from
Mhm.
existing pipeline right away. And they want setbacks from compressor stations, a minimum of 750 feet or 500 feet from the nearest lot line of natural gas. I mean, in compressor stations, I think implicate a greater hazard because their compressor stations are usually operated with diesel fuel or natural gas. So there's motors that are using internal combustion. There's leakage points that are possible. There's, off gassing, stuff like that, and a lot of noise. So I think that's why they are suggesting larger setbacks from compressor stations. And then they say that setbacks can be modified. I mean, I don't know whether that flies, but that's what they say.
So with respect to safety and this so-called blast radius, isn't that directly related to the size of the pipeline? And the product being transported in it?
I think it's the latter. But it probably does have some implications for the size of the pipeline.
Because there's nothing in here that speaks to the size. In other words, a sliding scale, 12-inch versus 15-inch versus 20-inch. It's just one size fits all.
Yeah, I mean, that again argues for the need to get expert assistance for these issues. Because we can't guess.
But I mean, in the Chester County proposed model ordinance, I mean, basically the only thing they're regulating there is setbacks. Is that?
Yes, I believe that's, I mean, there's some stuff about signage and some mitigation type measures, but I think it's mostly traditional zoning type stuff. And of course, remember, saldo requirements can always be waived by the Board of Supervisors themselves. You don't need to go to the zoning hearing board. You don't need to get any other relief than ask, as Westtown School was asking for waivers. So all of this stuff, if it's in saldo, can be waived. Which might be the way to go if you need flexibility, because it seems pretty complex.
I thought there were both Pennsylvania and federal regulations covering signage. Kind of. like
Yep.
the
I believe there is.
Poles that they, so that would be preemptive also?
I believe it would be, because it relates to safety.
Okay, so that brings me back to the other question. Is there anything else that we can actually cover besides setbacks?
I think that's what it is. But so in zoning, we can deal with roadway issues, transportation issues. We can deal with noise. We can deal with odors. So there are areas beyond just traditional setbacks. And some of those issues were covered in, you can see, were covered in East Goshen Township's version. I think they addressed noise and they addressed odors. Are we spinning our wheels here?
No, I mean, I'd be satisfied if we just made a setback recommendation. You know, if the ordinance was essentially a setback recommendation.
I certainly think the Board of Supervisors wants that recommendation. They want a recommendation on setback. Should we make a recommendation on some other areas? I don't know the answer, but we could if we felt that strongly enough that it was important for the protection of public health, safety, and welfare.
And if we can get our hands on whatever the county used to arrive at a setback recommendation, would we be satisfied that that's sufficient and we don't need our own expert advice?
Yeah, I think if we decide that the basis for Chester County's selection of setbacks is adequate, then we don't need anything else.
Okay. So that would be our next hurdle to get past. And if we had that, then we could at least make the recommendation for a particular setback number.
So do we want to ask Mila to further investigate what Chester County's rationale is, or what their backup documentation is for their suggested setbacks?
Exactly.
And I suggest we also do noise and odor. There's two other items to cover at some point.
Yeah, the noise produced by compressor stations is 24/7. I mean,
Right.
if you live
It's
close to
loud.
one of those, your life has been changed.
Right, so I think those three items cover pipelines. Setback,
Setback, noise.
noise, odor.
Okay, so tomorrow I will ask Mila to provide some more background about Chester County's selection of setbacks, what the rationale was. And I'll tell her that we're interested in regulating noise and odors. I believe she put something about noise and odors in her draft.
She may have.
Did she not?
Yeah, unfortunately, she's not here right now to explain the
To put the
genesis
hand-
of this.
Yeah, there's
Draft.
noise, odors, signage, parking, lighting, design, visual impact. Yeah, and I think she took a lot of this from East Goshen.
Yeah,
I think I'm suspecting she combined East Goshen with
What we got.
the county recommended ordinance.
All right, do we want to terminate this discussion for now and see what Mila has to
No, but I
say?
think we have a direction.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask Mila tomorrow about I'll talk to her and we'll see where we go from here.
I know in my brain, I'm focusing on undeveloped ground. But we talked earlier about where pipeline already exists, and people have housing and sheds and pools and whatever. And I don't know that this ordinance that she's drafted addresses the existing developments, but is it fair to say that we as a group and maybe the board wants to account for both instances?
I agree.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, I think we've started to see that, with some of the plans that have been brought in, the idea of infill, and of like additional, dwelling units that people are asking to put up. I mean, I think, yeah, we need to think about that, for sure.
Yeah, accessory dwelling units, yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
we're seeing more and more of that, so.
You know, so to reframe that question, if we adopt some of the setbacks that are recommended by Chester County, and it applies, and it makes existing residential properties non-conforming, then they would not be able to build an accessory dwelling unit if it fell within the setback area. Unless we somehow exempt it.
And I was gonna say, is that the, when we get the sort of the bones of the ordinance, do we then have to go back and say, you know, here's the exemptions, here's the categories of stuff that get.
I think we probably should recommend some exemptions. I know at least one supervisor who leans more toward property rights would want that. Where the other two lean, I don't know at this point.
Yeah, that could impact a lot of people in theory, assuming they
Yeah.
propose to build something, which, you know, is
So, but it's only
a
gonna,
possibility.
we're only talking about impacting a residential type housing, not their swimming pool, not their shed, all those things that could be in that setback area.
I don't know. That's a question I think that needs to be answered.
The setbacks basically say you shall have this amount of setback. It doesn't say, oh, but there's a
Oh,
different.
we're done.
There's a different setback for.
I know. But
Is there a definition, stupid question, is there a definition for setback? And maybe we really need to be clear on what that is. Is it setback to the principal structure, accessory structure,
I think it could.
residential?
I think it could be whatever we say it is.
I mean, I don't care if there's sheds in the setback, but so you need to find that.
Do you have any questions for me for pipeline?
Where have you been?
Concert.
No. We know.
Well, one thing that we wanted to talk to you about was, what are the justifications for the setbacks? And we think that Chester County, and we ought to confirm this, you sent us a Chester County model for a subdivision and land development ordinance amendment.
So the model ordinance that we reviewed before in 2014, that's the model that the county rolled out. And only a handful of municipalities adopted the ordinance, but it has not been legally tested yet. So in speaking with those municipalities, they think it will be challenged if there is a subdivision and land development. The one that had been tested somewhat is the one that East Goshen Township has. So it went through some form of litigation. So East Goshen model primarily focuses on specific pipelines that transport specific product. But when it comes to setback, so the county model is based on a blast zone. So depending which product it is, it can be at the end of the day, it's half a mile radius, a minimum. That's what the county is looking for. So when you are thinking about setbacks, right now, anything you build on your property, as long as you don't encroach into pipeline easement and compliant with all other zoning requirements, you can build the house, shed, pool, and everything else. So the question is, does it really matter whether you have a shed right next to the easement or 10 feet from the easement? The same for a pool. So that's where the setback here, some of the municipalities provide 75-foot back setback from, where pipeline is towards the property for any structures or buildings. But there is really no firm justifications for that, except for prevent digging or planting of trees. Because it happens all the time when property owners would say, we know where the property line is. And it ends up being that they do not. We actually just had a situation that apparently garage was built 1/4 onto somebody else's property 5 years ago. And now the adjacent property owner who've done a survey realized that. So it happens all the time.
Well, one of the questions we had is, do we know what information Chester County used to develop these?
Oh, yes. I think I provided those before. Chester County had a really extensive pipeline task force. So if you go on their website, and they got involved, I believe, there was a lot of organizations that were involved.
They did a hazard assessment of the Mariner pipeline, I believe, in connection with there
was a lot of, yeah.
So the next question is, if we select those setbacks, could we rely on the information that Chester County used to justify what they put in the model ordinance?
You mean the 300 and 600?
If we chose that, can we point to something that says Chester County came up with this and Chester County used this document?
Yes, I can recirculate the guide again. No, they did have an expert. They had a variety of experts and they came up with the model based on what was provided to them. And I can recirculate that. I forgot what it's called. It's a design guide for pipelines and safety and things like that. So I can recirculate that document.
As you heard, one of the other overarching concerns is if we adopt some of these setbacks, we make hundreds of existing properties non-conforming.
If the model, yes, that's why the one that's drafted is not adopting the model. And the reason why is, I believe a couple years ago when the pipeline setbacks ordinance came up, in speaking with our solicitor, he advised against those regulations because we would get, but that had to do with the Stokes, that we would get challenged on that.
The draft that you prepared dated May 2026. Can you explain where the pieces of that came from?
Yeah, so most of this is East Goshen. So in Chester County in general, most municipalities, the municipalities who are have regulations pertaining to pipelines, have exact same ordinance that we have, that starts on page 5, under H, which is currently A, surface land uses affiliated with transmission pipelines. A lot of Chester County municipalities have exact same ordinance. Only handful adopted model ordinance by the county, and the reason being is that a lot of municipalities feel that they would get challenged on it, and that they will lose. So the only one that was tested through litigation was East Goshen one. So most of here came from East Goshen with additional definitions, additional research from, and Pat is still reviewing this draft to see if we might have an issue with that.
It's my recollection that the East Goshen Township issue was the pipeline's desire to build an above ground or a surface
Okay.
facility. And East Goshen said, you can't do that. You can't build what you want to build in the place where you want to build it. And I think they won because it was zoning.
Mhm.
It was a traditional zoning authority.
Yeah, so the way that East Goshen have done theirs, which I appreciated, it really does matter what type of product you have in a pipeline.
Right.
So that's why they had specific limitations for different conditions. We can add to that or we can minimize that. The hardest part is when we talk about structures and setbacks from the pipeline. Because, so the example would be if the township would adopt regulations where it says you cannot build anything within 300, no structures within 300 feet of a pipeline, that would be a township taken. The same like riparian buffer. I've been involved with riparian buffer in the same situation where the township restricted and made riparian buffer regulations are much larger than 75 feet, which actually encompasses a couple of properties, and it got challenged. And people who challenged the ordinance won because they cannot develop a property at all. So that's kind of the thinking behind it. What would be reasonable in terms of public safety if we are talking about blast radius, and we've had a lot of knowledgeable people here during Stokes discussions about that. Half a mile is the minimum. That's what I've heard. That's the research that I've seen. But can we actually, I believe I included a map of pipelines in your packets. Is it reasonable to do half a mile?
No,
It's a big chunk of the township.
no.
But when we had the discussions, what can be regulated, digging is one of those things. Sometimes people don't know where you can see the pipeline signage, but you don't know where easement starts, where it ends. Sometimes we found out pipeline is not aligned in the center of the easement. It can be a little off. So, or should the township require property survey if people building anything at all on the property that has a pipeline easement? Would that prevent an issue? You would think people would do PA1 call, but
They don't.
there is no guarantee. Tree plantings, that's a big thing too.
So the setback, a half mile is too much. 0 is too little. The question is what's reasonable in between? And apparently, with all the work that the county did, even though it's 2014, which is really predates
Well,
the controversy with the Mariner pipelines that occurred after that.
Mm.
I don't know why they picked what they did, but you would think that somebody smart advised them, and that's what they came up with.
Yes, and I'm sure we can build on this draft. That's why I sent it to Pat to review. Maybe there are additional items that we are not thinking about that we can maybe there is a reason, maybe there is a good suggestion to use somebody who has like a pipeline expertise, but the county already have done that as well.
So I notice you have it, it's in our zoning ordinance. And the existing provisions related to pipelines are currently in our zoning ordinance. And then you've added to that and kept it in zoning. But the question is, do you think the board wants it in zoning? Because somebody wants a variance as a zoning hearing board and it's out of the board's hands.
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I mean, if you're trying to regulate setbacks, it has to be in zoning.
Well, right now you have 75 feet, no structure within 75 feet of the center of a pipeline. Or pipeline corridor, whichever is greater. And then you have educational, properties with educational and institutional uses setback 100 feet from the pipeline center line. And then critical facilities, you want 200 feet setback.
And that just based on research. That's what I've seen in other samples. So greater setbacks for any sort of schools, colleges, daycares, and then any emergency services, even public facilities like police building, a greater setback.
Yeah. Are we going to be able to point to some authoritative source for those setbacks?
So no, this is just arbitrary numbers.
Okay.
The specific numbers are arbitrary, 75, 100, 200. Somebody
But
just said, how about the 100 feet?
We would have to define critical.
We can do that. Yeah, this is the first draft. I mean, if we have to add additional definitions, we can add additional definitions. We do have some definitions already that I can just use a different term that's already defined in the zoning ordinance.
We're gonna have to figure out if all of the terms that we're using in the ordinance are defined.
Defined, yes.
But from looking at the basic question here, which is setbacks, what do we think of these setback provisions? And it's in section A, it's in section C of Milla's draft.
So Mila, one of the things that we were talking about before came back was whether the study that Chester County had put together, as you said, then your setback numbers are arbitrary. And we're looking for something non-arbitrary. And we were wondering if the Chester County study if that had information that said, you know, they recommended, I forget what they were, 600 feet, whatever it was. If in their supporting documents or study, whatever, if it said, here's why we recommend 600 feet, here's what the science is behind it. Because if we have that kind of a rationale, then I think we can justify the numbers.
So I'll do more research on justification because from what I've seen, there was really no explanation. It almost seemed like, well, we cannot reasonably do 300, 600 feet. So let's go with these numbers.
And that may be all there is to it.
Yeah, I'll review it again.
Question.
Microphone.
I have a two-part question. Sorry about that. In defining the setback, are we talking setback from the actual physical center line of the physical pipe or from the easement for the pipeline? And if so, does anybody know if there's like a standard width of an easement in a pipeline scenario?
So they all vary. We have one that can go, and I have to look back. One is definitely 50 feet. There's a couple that 50 feet easements. The smallest one, I believe, is 30 feet. And then we found out with the Stokes that they don't really run in the middle. of the easement. So
The actual physical pipe
the
doesn't. always-
physical pipe.
Right.
So, so it's like, when you call PA1 call, they would come out and they're supposed to mark where the actual pipe is, which makes it easier in the field. If let's say it's a 50-foot easement, you would assume 25 feet on each side of that line would be an easement, but it might not be correct unless you do a property survey to determine that.
Right.
So that's what creates, it's easier to me, measure setback from where they would come out and say, here is where the pipe is, because then you know how far you are from the physical infrastructure. With the easement, it gets a little bit
Yeah.
unclear,
And that's assuming that the pipeline is actually laid or that
or they know
when
what
Pennsylvania One Call, when they come out, they actually have
information
actual-
about them.
as-built diagram
Well,
as opposed to,
I would think they know.
no.
I don't know.
Well, I'm sorry, did you have a second question?
No, I was just going to make mistakes happen. People don't. Right.
Well, and then another question, sorry, that I wanted to bring up as well. When we talk about construction and digging, those are for shallow pipelines, but we also have HD pipelines, which is pretty difficult to hit. So, right now, we don't have the definition for that here. I don't know if that matters. So you might have a pipeline easement going through your property, but the pipeline goes so far underground, even if you plant a tree or do anything on your property, it's not really going to impact you.
Mila, in the sample ordinance from the county, the general setback was 300 feet. But in your ordinance, your draft, you said you 75 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from?
So this is just arbitrary.
Okay.
I just looked over different samples for different municipalities because there's really not many municipalities that have provisions in place.
All
So,
right, I understood that.
yeah, that's just a
so-
suggestion if
so-
we cannot do 300 feet.
When we get to the point where we're fine tuning this, I think we need to, throw around this term setback, but when you look at the definition of setback, at least in the zoning ordinance, you look up setback line, it says see building setback line. You go to building setback line, it says the line parallel to the street line.
Mhm.
These are not streets, they're right of way. So obviously, we'd have to have either a separate definition or refine that definition to address right away.
Or
Right
you
away
can,
of a pipeline.
or you can, instead of the word setback, we can just use isolation distances. Isolation distances is an easy term to use to define the distance between structure and whatever else.
Yeah,
we're
that might be
trying.
better.
And then you are not mixing it with the word setback. Because I would be afraid to redefine the word setback as it goes. It impacts entire zoning code and subdivision, and I
Right.
just want to make sure that we don't create issues.
Good point.
Yeah, so for now I called it setback, but I can change it.
Where do you want to go from here? From
Okay, it's 5 minutes to 9, so I think we need some more reflection and discussion. Mila's gonna do a little more research
Okay.
for us. And I suggest we take this up again at our next meeting.
Did you have a chance to review roles and responsibilities or not yet? No, okay,
No,
bless you.
no, we did not.
Okay.
So I'm gonna suggest that our consensus is we adjourn and we'll pick up with these discussions at a future meeting. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
We have one or two more things in the last waning moments of our meeting, and that is public comment on anything related to our discussion tonight. Is there any public comment from those present in the Stokes Meeting Hall? No. Are there any comments from our remote audience? No. I'm closing the public comment period unless commissioners have any public comments they wish to voice. No. So we're going to move to reports of the Board of Supervisors meeting on May 4th, 2026. Mr. Now.
All right. Yeah, for department reports, Mark Gross with Public Works just mentioned about there's an uptick in calls for Aqua, 105 in the past month. To go, Mark, I guess I wasn't totally clear if it was just issues or to go mark different things. Friends of Oakbourne had tree planting that they participated in and helped with. And then the wastewater Pleasant Grove pump station had a second delay, but they're working through that. Historical Commission, they want to digitize the archives, and so they're looking to try to for better preservation so things don't get lost or destroyed. So they're looking to try to do that. They are trying to work on the historic ordinance. They are talking about doing something during Westtown Day for the Declaration of Independence as part of the celebrating of America 250. They are trying to get the history book together as well. They've had a little delay, but they're trying to do that, and they're going to continue doing lectures. They said they've been getting good response for those. Environmental Action Council is going to be having about, I think they said around 5 speakers or having 5 speakers for 2026. They're also trying to, for America 250, talk about tree care workshop and planting of trees as well. And then they're working on a pollinator garden, I believe right outside the building here. I guess you guys were there for part of that too. May 17th, this Craybilly cleanup, and they're doing community composting as well. Mila said something about just emergency operation plan, trying to get together that, who's the point person, put people to contact, things like that. Down with new business, they awarded $655,000 for the West Pleasant Grove Road repair and for $71,000 for South Concord and Sutter Knoll roads, which will be taken care of, I guess, next year. And then there's a vacancy in the Environmental Advisory Council, Puzzle Palooza on Thursday, May 7th, Yard Waste Friday, May 8th, Story Time in the Park, which have been, I guess, very well attended, on Mondays at 10:30. Club Mahjong, Wednesday, May 13th. Murder Mystery Hike, Wednesday, May 13th at 6 p.m. Birds and Brews, Thursday, May 14th at 5:30 p.m. And Great American Cleanup at Craybilly Preserve, Sunday, May 17th at 6:30 a.m.
It's a great team building exercise, Birds and Brews.
Yeah.
And that's it, unless, Jack, you want to add something to?
Well, thank you. That was a very nice summary. Thank you, sir. Next meeting of the PC will be on the 20th of May, 7 p.m. And the next PC rep at the Board of Supervisors meeting on May 18th, 2026 at 7:30 p.m. is Mr. Flynn. Maybe you can send him a reminder. And if he can't, do we know offhand who's the sub?
It was Brian. I think they switched.
I won't be here. I won't be available.
Okay, so if he's not available, I'll see who is the next.
Yeah. It's likely I'll be there, so. Okay, very good. Is there any other discussion that the Planning Commission wishes to entertain tonight? Hearing none, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. Chairman, move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed.